President Marcos has confirmed support for a possible successor for the 2028 presidential elections, but he refused to give a name. Still too early, he says, although Marcos revealed potential alliances with other parties. And as the 2028 battle lines begin to form, a forest of question marks still surrounds the flood control probe. Marcos turns back to the scandal, demanding accountability for anomalous projects, and with 105 billion pesos for flood control in the proposed budget for next year, and with accusations of certain congressmen in the prosecution receiving their share of flood control budgets. How far has the crackdown really gone? Good evening, you're watching Political Beat. I am Lourdes de Vera. The battle lines for 2028 are starting to take shape. And President Marcos says he will be endorsing a presidential candidate but refused to show his hand this early, even as Vice President Sara Duterte has already declared her bid. And for more details, let's talk to our mobile journalist, Julie Baiza. Julie, okay, ito ba ang sinabi niya sa 50th anniversary ng Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines?
Yes, Lord, sa FOCA presidential luncheon nga nasabi ng Pangulo that he will certainly endorse a presidential candidate in the upcoming 2028 presidential elections. Pero ang tanong kung sino yan, hindi pa raw niya masasabi kasi hindi pa rin naman daw niya alam. Ang sabi ng Pangulo, masyado pang maaga or it's too early para pag-usapan yan. Lalo ngayon daw na nag-iisa pa lang naman yung nagsabing tatakbo siya sa pagka-presidente sa 2028. At yun nga, yung dati niyang running mate, si Vice President Sara Duterte. Marami pa rin daw na political events na pwedeng mangyari before 2028. Kaya panigurado ang Pangulo, ang sabi niya, mahihirapan din daw siya sa pagdedesisyon. And kung maglalabas naman daw ng desisyon ngayon, ng pangalan, magiging premature lang din daw yan. Ang isa pang sinasabi ng Pangulo, Dord, wala pa daw siyang kinakausap kahit sino ngayon, whether politician or official, at wala pang inalok or tinanong kung gusto bang kumandidato sa pagka-presidente. Mukhang hindi pa rin daw mangyayari itong pag-uusap na ito anytime soon kasi ang sabi ng Pangulo, the time will come.
Parang clickbait naman yung hirit na yon. Parang may nasuportahan na ako. Pero sigurado ako, hindi pa.
Actually,
Parang ganun,
ang
diba?
nililinaw lang niya, I will endorse. Kasi parang tinatanong siya na, mananahimik lang ba? Or may i-endorse ba yung administrasyon? So, ang nililinaw niya, I will endorse. Wala pa nga lang akong pangalan ngayon. Hindi pa natin alam kung sino. Kasi, ayun, hindi siya makakapagsabi ng pangalan because wala pa naman daw mga lumulutang din, iisa pa nga lang din. Mahirap din daw na mag-conclude kasi ang sabi nga ng presidente kanina, sasabihin, tatakbo si ganito, tatakbo si ganyan. Pero you'll never know. Madami pa daw pwedeng mangyari before 2028.
Yan ang mga paasa headlines, tinatawag. Kasi wala pa naman yata presidenteng walang in-endorse sa kahit anong presidential elections sa mga susunod, di ba?
Oo, lagi namang may bet talaga ang administration, lalo na may political party naman na karga-karga si Pangulo Marcos.
May sinabi rin ba tungkol sa mga possible political party alliances?
Ang sabi niya, of course, doon sa pagpili ng kandidato, he will choose the best possible candidate na magpapatuloy daw ng mga nasimula ng administration. Kung sino rin daw yung mga may madadalang bago at better initiatives for the country. Ang hinahanap daw ng Pangulo, isang tao na tiwala siyang magpapatuloy sa anti-corruption measures na nasimula nila. At nabanggit nga niya, yung kanyang political party na Partido Federal ng Pilipinas at shock daw that they are going to make alliances with other parties. Ang i-consider daw nila kung magkakaroon ba ng mga joint candidates or magkakaroon ng sariling slate. Pero previously, meron tayong alyansa nung nakaraang midterm election. So, doon nakita natin na nag-endorse din naman or nag-adapt ng other candidates yung alyansa. So tingnan natin paano kasi mas malaking election or presidential elections kasi yung darating.
Alam mo, yung luncheon na yun ba ay may mga nagtanong na mga representative mula sa mga foreign press agencies? Kasi pasaway magtanong yan sila, ha?
Oo, actually, di ba kasi sila naman talaga yung nag-organize nung event naman talaga ng FOCAP yun. So, sila mainly yung nagtanong, wala naman yung member ng Malacanang Press Corps.
Ay, hindi kayo inimbita, Julie?
Invited naman, invited. Or yung, kasi di ba meron siyang for non-members. Pero yung pagtatanong kasi, mas sa kanila talaga yan, sa FOCAP talaga yan.
Okay, ano pa ang mga nasabi dyan sa luncheon na yan? At ano pa yung mga, kumbaga, mga nilatag na mga inquiry, kumbaga?
Isa pa sa sinabi ng Pangulo, kasi natanong siya, domestic politics kasi yung isa sa mga naging highlight. Tinanong siya dun sa mga survey ngayon. Ang sabi niya kasi, as we know, nangunguna sa survey for the presidency si Vice President Sara Duterte. Ang sabi niya, hindi raw mababago yung desisyon niya ng survey. Hindi raw yan nakaka-apekto sa kanya kasi hindi lang sa pagpili ng kandidato, pati sa government policies, hindi daw niya isinasandal or hindi niya ginagawang basis yung survey. Ang ginagawa pa rin niya kung ano yung palagay niyang best policy for the country. Hindi naman daw kasi madadetermine ng survey yung rightness or wrongness or kung tama or mali ba yung isang desisyon based on survey. Pero in-acknowledge ng Pangulo na as a politician, talagang, kumbaga, pinapansin din niya itong mga survey. Ina-acknowledge din daw niya at kapag, let's say, hindi maganda yung numbers, hinihiling din daw niya na sabi niya, sana may better numbers. And kapag maganda naman, nire-recognize niya na, okay, it's a great job kasi maganda yung numbers natin. Pero that's just it, hindi na daw siya nagda-delve deeper on numbers kasi ayaw nga din daw niya, kailangan daw magbalik trabaho. Isa pa sa sabi mo nga kanina na FOCAP, so more on international issues din yung mga tinatanong nila. Nagpaliwanag
ibig
din ng
sabihin ng
Pangulo
reset? Reset sa relasyon with China?
Yes, nagpaliwanag ang Pangulo dun sa reset sa relasyon sa China. Ang sabi niya, reset means returning to dialogue whenever tensions between China and the Philippines begin to rise. Yung nagkakaroon ng mga iba't ibang insidente dyan sa South China Sea or West Philippine Sea. Kapag ka daw nagsisimula na mag-increase or mag-escalate yung tension, kailangan daw bumalik sa pag-uusap. Kailangan daw i-remind na yung situation, hindi ito yung this is not a situation headed in the right direction. Kailangan daw ma-remind yung both countries. At kapag ganyan daw kasi, maiiwasan na yung pagbabangga ng maritime forces natin, ng mga puwersa ng bansa at ng China dyan sa South China Sea. Ang kailangan din daw nilang i-identify kapag ka nag-uusap if ano yung naging problema, paano maiiwasan at saan ba hindi nagkakasundo. So yun yung sinasabi niya na reset. Iyan yung first time actually na in-explain ni PBBM ano bang reset kasi before parang ang sabi lang niya reset the relationship pero walang aspeto. Yun pala yung pag-uusap and very consistent naman dun sa polisiya ng pamahalaan na diplomatic yung way ng pag-deal dito sa usapin sa China.
Pero sabi niya, okay, ang pagkakapinta ng Pangulo doon sa relasyon natin with China ay parang parang steady lang, tuloy lang. Yung oil and gas exploration daw ay talagang, alam natin ang nangyari ngayon. Noong 2023, nag-usap sila ni President Xi Jinping, pero naantala itong mga proyektong to. Pero ano raw yung way of moving forward nila, kumbaga?
Sorry, i-add ko lang if I remember, din noong 2023, kasi yan yung first visit ni Pangulong Marcos sa China, we were there. And noon napag-usapan doon mas parang bang tamang term, mas naging diplomatic yung pag-uusap, mas pinush niya na magkaroon tayo nung communications, ng communication channel para mas maging maayos. So yun nga yung pina-follow through namin towards mga 2024, 2025, nung nagkakaroon na ng different incident, ano yung nangyari doon sa communications channel. So, I remember yun yung first time nga na napag-usapan na magiging mas sentro sa pag-uusap yung relasyon ng dalawang bansa. Ngayon dito naman sa oil exploration, magtutuloy daw yan, magpupush through yan, kaya lang may mga pinaplansya pa na mga kailangang ayusin para dito sa exploration, sa oil exploration.
Oo. Kukorek lang kita, Julie. Hindi yun yung unang pagkakataon na pumunta si BBM sa China. As early as 1974, isang taon or bago dumating si Ferdinand Marcos Sr. para sa isang state visit, abay dumalaw ang mag-inang Bongbong Marcos kasama si Madam Imelda noong 1974.
Sorry, I meant nung Pangulo na siya, yung first China visit, first and last so far.
Correct. As president, kumbaga,
As president,
Oo.
yes.
Teenager pa lang siya noon. Teenager pa lang siya at makikita mo na First time daw si Mao Zedong nagpakita ng any semblance of emotion. Kasi parang doon talagang hinalikan niya yung kamay ni Madam Imelda. Back then, mga 81 years old na si Chairman Mao noon. At mukhang talaga nabighani daw talaga itong si Chairman sa charms ni Mami Imelda. Alright? Pero, okay, Julie, wala bang binanggit tungkol doon sa investigasyon sa kanyang pinsan?
Natanong yung investigation, ang sabi niya, ang ombudsman daw yung dapat kausapin doon kasi ipinauubaya na niya sa ombudsman yung takbo ng investigasyon. Si Ombudsman Remulla din naman daw nakatutok doon sa not just with Romualdez pero sa flood control investigation as a whole at tuloy-tuloy naman din daw yung pagsasalita sa issue. So wala tayong nakuha sa presidente after yung pagbanggit niya ng sa pinsan niya sa SONA, no? Yung follow-up is ask ombudsman na.
Alright. On that note, maraming salamat. Magpahinga ka at happy weekend sa iyo. Julie Baiza, ang ating mobile journalist sa Malacanang. Do stick around. More stories ahead when Political Beat returns. A year after President Marcos said, "Mahiya naman kayo." After the speech, the flood control scandal has led to dozens of charges and investigations, but questions remain over how deep the corruption goes and who else should be held accountable. A recent report by the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism looked at where the probe stands more than a year later. And we'll be talking to the writer of that report. She is from the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, Miss Guinevere Latosa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. You can call me Gwen.
Gwen na lang. Oh, masyadong parang medieval pa Gwen.
Or ML.
Milady.
Mobile Legends.
Ah,
It's a
okay.
character.
Okay, gets. Doon mo makikita na wala akong kaalam-alam sa mga games talaga. Alright, Gwen. Last year, naglabas ka ng extensive article kayo sa PCIJ, mahaba-haba, no? Tungkol dito sa flood control. Hanggang ngayon, bukang bibig pa rin. Pero magsisimula ka sa medyo recent. Ito ba halimbawa, itong ni-name halimbawa ni dating Secretary Manuel Bonoan na yung Leadership Fund, it's just the same thing, pero iba lang ang tawag?
Same thing. Actually, based on what we've seen, some documents from insiders, magkaiba po yun yung leadership funds dun sa sinasabing allocable. Strictly speaking po.
Strictly speaking, kasi yung isa sa Senado pupunta. Ganun ba yan?
Sa pagkaka-explain po ni former Secretary Bonoan, mukhang ganun po sa pag-leadership sa Senado. When we say allocables po, based on what we've gathered, mas sa mga distrito po ito, so mga nasa lower house, mga congressman. But at the end of the day, different name pero pork barrel pa rin po ang interpretasyon natin dyan.
Yun pa rin siya, no? Oo. I see. Interesting. Ngayon, mamaya babalikan natin yung yung kung may naka-figure out na ba yung sinasabi nila na tanging si the late Secretary Cabral, Undersecretary Cabral lang ang nakakaintindi ng formula. May nakapag-crack na ba ng formula na yun?
So, ang unang-una ang tawag po is tawag doon, baseline, balance, and manage.
BBM.
BBM. Parang sobrang coincidental naman po no, na yun talaga yung pangalan. But anyway, may dokumento po actually yon. So mahaba po siyang document, tapos may explanation kung paano ba na-figure out yung formula. Pero based nga sa testimonies, even former Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo, who is now a state witness, said he doesn't understand it. And actually, nakausap din po natin. And even nagpa-interview naman din po yung lawyer po ni former Undersecretary Cabral na may Excel sheet daw po si Undersecretary Cabral. Tapos, based po yun sa document. But, when she and former Secretary Bonoan proposed it to the House, sila na po yung nagmangle ng formula. And yun na po yung naging outcome na ginagamit sa 2023 hanggang 2025 budget. And we actually figured out, based on documents from the DPWH, na ang pinakanakinabang po sa tinatawag na BBM parametric formula na allocable funds lang din naman ay actually the presidential son, Ilocos Norte 1st District Representative Sandra Marcos, and former Speaker and later Representative Ferdinand Martin Romualdez.
The allocable kings, ika nga, no?
Yes.
So, yung doon na-expose yung budget at yung allocable sa tinatawag natin ay napunta doon sa dalawang taong ito. Okay, linawin lang natin, almost yung mga matataas na porsyento nitong nearly 1.2 trillion na allocable funds ay napunta nga sa magtiyuhin sa Kongreso.
Kumbaga po yung 1.2 trillion, that's for all.
For all, yeah.
Yes,
oo. Yung highest, kumbaga malaking porsyento nun. Pero 15.8 billion napunta sa Sandro Marcos. At 14 naman kay Romualdez, tama?
Yun po yung estimation natin. Kasi every year, meron pong kumbaga minimum na allocable. So, kung ita-times 3 niyo po yun, yan po yung parang baseline na nakukuha nila na automatic na pondo para sa distrito po nila.
At sabi ng article mo ay hanggang ngayon misteryo pa rin kung paano umabot sa ganong amounts kasi tanging si Yusek Cabral lang ang nakakaintindi ng formula.
But then when, again, nung pinropose niya po yung formula, pinago na rin po ng House leadership daw po at the time. And meron din pong nabanggit no, yung yung lawyer niya po na may communication po sila, may communication po si former Appropriations Chair Zaldico na ito yung gusto naming formula. Though hindi pa po natin nakikita yan but at least may mga ganong admissions po no, na even though it was former Undersecretary Cabral who made up the formula, meron pa ring intervention from the House of Representatives, at least from what we've gathered.
Ngayon ay hindi na ginagamit yung term na insertions.
Very controversial.
Oo. Sinasabi, insertions per se ay hindi naman daw illegal.
Which is true.
Pero, okay, tuloy.
So, nung actually, i-connect ko po sa insertion, pero nung nilabas po natin yan, no, mixing reactions. Merong mga congressman na nagalit na kasi nandun sila sa list. Siyempre, nandun sila lahat, pero yung iba mas nasa higher end. May mga nagalit sa akin.
Salbahe kasi yung article yun, yung parang click mo kung kanino yung pinakamababa, kanino yung pinakamalaki. So pag kinlik mo pa, may unang pangalan na lalabas.
Well, the numbers won't lie. But may mga nagalit. Admittedly, may mga tawag ako na natanggap. Pero, interestingly, merong mga congressman na inamin nila na pondo ko nga yan. Pinagmamalaki nila. Kasi at least nababa nila yung pondo na yun para sa distrito nila. So I think, whenever I report na insertion siya, it's supposed to be neutral, I guess. Kasi lalo na if wala namang anomalya, a congressman should be proud of their insertions. Siguro doon nagiging sketchy or doon nagiging shady kapag ayaw mo or mailap ka sa term na yun kasi baka something actually went wrong with how it was spent. But generally, insertions, amendments po, di ba? At least how we understand it is ito lang po yung mga nag-iba na mga proyekto or dinagdag na mga proyekto na wala po dun sa executive or sa president's budget or what we call the National Expenditure Program.
Pero, kanyo, na kung narinig mo yung talumpati ni Senator Zubiri kagabi, ang ginamit yung term ay amendments.
Okay. Pabalik po ako. I think this was former Senator Franklin Drilon, no? In an interview before,
Ay, oo.
he said na insertions, amendments, it is the same. Kasi amendment, pagbabago, insertion, dinagdag mo, edi may nagbago pa din. I think allergic lang siguro po talaga yung iba. Kasi at the height of the flood control scandal, na-associate po siya dun sa small committee na dun nagkaroon ng secret insertions na as in no public scrutiny at all. So I think dun po nanggagaling yung sensitivities ng ibang mga lawmakers. Pero insertions, amendments, it's all the same.
Bago natin puntahan yung update sa so far, ano na nga ba kung itatrack mo talaga yung mga nangyari sa investigasyon? Yung punta muna ako dito sa, para medyo recent tayo, no? Yung sinasabi ni Mayor Benji Magalong na may mga miyembro daw ng prosecution sa House Impeachment Team, ang mga, may ano rin, may mga ganyang pondo. Totoo ba? Kung ibabatay sa article mo.
Insertions, allocables, mga ganun po. Based nga po dun sa reports, no, lahat naman po ng mga congressmen, lalo na po yung mga district congressmen, and pati naman yung mga partyless lawmakers, hindi lang po natin alam yung figures, but essentially all lawmakers are given the opportunity to give their preferred projects sa DPWH. So, in a general sense, lahat naman po talaga sila, may ganon. Yung iba naman po na nakakausap natin, tumatanggi talaga kasi hardliner sila, bawal ang pork, ayaw namin ng pork. Pero halos karamihan naman po ng mga congressmen, or at least sa mga distrito nila, may allocables naman na po talaga.
Pwede mo bang i-reveal na ba example ng mga pumalag nung nakita nila yung pangalan nila ron? At sino yung mga okay lang, proud pa nga ako dyan?
Siguro yung pumalag,
District Party List.
District sa may Mindanao.
Mindanao, okay.
Hindi ko na lang po pangangalanan. Pero, I mean, may reports naman na din po about it. Pero, isa po siya sa, kumbaga, ayun, sensitive, I guess, sa term na insertion. Or parang, isa po kasi siya dun sa highest. So, parang, nung nakita daw po yun ng mga tao, parang inassume agad na there was something wrong. So, yun po yung, I guess, naging backlash no, sa article na yun. Pero, I remember, ito, I think I can name naman po, no, weeks after nun, merong mga Iloilo lawmakers na, yun po, sinabi nila na may allocables naman po talaga. And hindi po nila dinenay yun. Among them, si Iloilo Representative Lawrence Sifancer actually, and si Representative Janet Garin, if I'm not mistaken. Sila po yung sinabi na meron naman po talagang mga proyekto na ibinababa sa kanilang distrito.
At kung titingnan mo, kung ibabase mo yung tama ba, pag population size, tapos yung laki ng po, yung depende sa amount ng allocables na punta sa kanila, may justification ba yon? Kasi ang puna ng iba sa populasyon ng distrito ng Presidential Son na ilan lang to? Wala pa yata. Wala, 320,000. Kung ikukumpara mo doon sa napunta sa unang distrito ng Rizal na may 1.2 million ng mga residente, ay mapapatanong ka nga, anong formula ang ginamit?
Exactly. Doon po sa budget document, sinabi nakabase naman daw po siya sa population, sa land area, and kung gaano daw po yung pangangailangan daw for development. But then again, hindi rin naman po tayo expert sa lahat ng bagay na yun. And again, parang siguro only an expert can explain that. And unfortunately, si former Undersecretary Cabral. Pero
may drawing pa nga yung formula. Kala ko maintindihan ko, di ba?
ako din, I love math, di ko naintindihan.
Hindi pala, no? Parametric formula. Pampalito yata yung parametric. Mamaya si Guido, nandyan pala yung mathematician ng OCTA.
Baka ma-figure out niya.
Baka ma-figure out niya kahit walang drawing. Pero since 2023 ka mo sa article mo, ang mga kamag-anakan ng Pangulo ang talagang nakakuha ng bulk talaga ng allocables. Paldo talaga. Okay. So, yung sunod na budget for next year, proposed dyan ay may 105 billion pa no, sa flood control.
Yes.
Na,
I think 107. But anyways, around that figure.
mga ganyan, oo. Mapapadasal na lang tayo siguro? Or is, di ba, kasabihan, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
I would like to challenge that idea because if anything, yung mga bagyo po ngayon bumabagyo pa nga po, 'di ba? Ako nakikita ko po na merong mga nangangailangan po talaga ng mga syudad siguro ng flood control. So rather than immediately demonizing the comeback of flood control, siguro I would want to give a chance to the DPWH to explain what went behind the decision to reinstate it and kung bakit ganun po yung po yung amount. But definitely, kailangan din po talaga i-scrutinize na whether or not it's the same kinds of projects na yung, di ba, sabi nga po nila, kaya flood control yung preferred kasi nakabaon sa lupa, so hindi mo talaga ma-check. So, titingnan po natin if same-same lang po ba, if mas marami bang pumping stations, because apparently, parang yun yung naririnig ko, daming pumping stations pala yung nakaka-solve daw, sabi nila. So, I would take it, or hindi ko siguro po muna i-demonize, but definitely, we should scrutinize how the budget process will go since pala, nandun na po tayo,
Budget
kakapasa
season
lang
na.
po na, diba?
Okay, so pasadahan natin to. Ang pinaka-latest na pangalan na kinasuhan ay ang isang party list representative from Iloilo.
Si Representative Jojo Ang, if yeah.
Conflict of interest over public works contracts. At siya ay linked sa dalawang Iloilo-based public works contractors.
IBC and I'm forgetting the name of the other. Basta dalawa po.
Sa dalawa. Okay.
Alan Con.
Mamaya tatanong yung Redicon na. Kasi may kinalaman ba yan sa ano?
Mamaya, sabihin.
Mamaya, bubulungan mo ako. Okay. Tapos, so far, ang mga pangalang ito, alam naman natin ito. Of course, 3 Zaldico sa iyong listahan. Tatlong kaso. May 2 Bong Revilla, may 1 Jinggoy Estrada. Ito ang mga, kumbaga, inimbestigahan na mga individual.
At nasa korte na po.
Nasa korte na. Okay. Tapos merong 4 na admitted as state witnesses. Na ang mga pangalang ito, katanggap-tanggap ba na sila ang hindi sila most guilty? Roberto Bernardo, Henry Alcantara, si Boss Henry, no, ng Bulacan First District, former regional director ng NCRC, Gerald Opolencia at Sally Santos, yung Sims Trading. At ang ombudsman ba sa Digan Bayan, ang sabi na gusto raw gawing state witness si dating Secretary Bonoan.
Ay, si ombudsman po.
Ombudsman, oo. Nga pala, pinuna pala ni Ombudsman Boying. Okay, at least 43 iniimbestigahan pa rin, either iniimbestigahan or nirefer na. May nagawa ba talaga tong ICI sa totoo lang? O nagsayang lang tayo ng pentel pen para sulatin ng isang head, yung lyrics ng What the World Needs Now?
And yung pinalagay na ICI dun sa BGC, no?
Meron ba?
Nung nagko-cover pa po ako noon, as in, pinaskilan pa po nila.
Parang just in case you missed the point, may ICI dito.
By the way, it was promising, I will say that. Kasi, at least on paper, you had an independent body na syempre yung duda nga po sa mga congressional hearings sa House, sa Senate, sila naman din po yung sangkot. So how can you be impartial if mga colleagues mo or baka ikaw pa nga yung involved? So it was promising from the get-go. Pero nung ina-announce po na, oh by the way, closed door siya, hindi natin maririnig kung ano yung mga
diba?
Sinasabi sa loob. And then, even the ICI report, ang hirap makuha yun. Kasi apparently, oonti lang daw po yung may access doon. Yun po sana yung magbibigay sana ng hope sa mga tao na the wheels of justice are working and yet why is it still behind closed doors nga po, di ba? I understand na meron pong mga concerns na, well, baka trial by publicity and all of that. Pero, ano po ba yung difference with the revelations na, di ba? So,
tapos in the end, recommendatory lang naman pala sila.
Yun nga po wala rin pong pangil, di ba? And yun. To me, when I was reviewing some of the reports, in a way, medyo na-reinforce lang din po yung mga testimonies. Kumbaga, pinagtagpi-tagpi na lang din po. Pero in terms of anything explosive or anything new, personally, as someone who has covered the flood control scandal, I found it lacking. Kumbaga.
Ito namang mga pangalang to ay under investigation or referred by the ICI to the Ombudsman. Martin Romales, Jesus Escudero, Joel Villanueva, Cristina Angeles, kongresista, at si Aurelio Dong Gonzales, dating kongresista ng Pampanga. Tama?
Yes.
Conflict of interest din ito. Sa anong point nung investigation itong past year, nung nasabi mo sa sarili mo na, ay, anak ng naglolokohan lang tayo dito? Or meron bang, anong punto nung taong nakalipas yung talagang, nagkaroon ka talaga ng hope na, abay, mukhang tutuluyan nila? At ano ba ang kulang? May mga butas ba rito?
Ako po, actually, from as much as the president has gotten a lot of criticisms with the way that accountability measures are going right now, actually helpful po yung sumbong sa Pangulo. No? For a journalist who bases a lot of her investigations on data, that actually helped. And ang dami pong na-uncover doon. And even yung paglabas po ng transparency portal ng DPWH, it helps. So, and whenever I release our stories na admittedly medyo data heavy, nagugulat ako kasi nagbabasa pa pala talaga yung mga tao. And like, as, yun nga.
Baka puro si Ed Lingaw lang yun na nagko-comment.
Di naman. Pero, yun po. So, in a way, nagkakaroon po ako ng hope kapag binabasa po ng tao. And, sabihin ko ba? Okay, sige. Nung, may isang, hindi ko na lang babanggitin ko anong story. May isang story po ako na ginawa. And then, nung lumabas po siya, tumawag someone. And then, natanong niya, Gwen, kanina mo pa, sinong nakakaalam na ako yung isa sa mga naging source of info, ganyan. Hanggang sa sinabi niya, apparently, may tumatawag daw kasi from someone nasa very mataas. So, doon ako, and syempre, una natakot ako, di ba? Kasi gabi na din yun, so alam mong urgent, may urgency. But at the same time, doon mo napuprove na may natatamaan. At the end of the day, ngayon medyo hindi ko rin po alam kung saan papunta yung mga investigasyon, whether or not the announcements nasa PI na would actually, o kung tatawid ba talaga into a case. But as long as you know na yung mga opisyal po, natatakot or nararattle sila. That's how you know your work has impact eh.
Yes.
I think that's what matters. Kasi even with, I live in Marikina, nakailang baha na rin po doon, no? Pero ngayon ko lang nakita na...
Wala daw, baha?
May. Actually, medyo true naman. May mga iilan pero hindi ganun ka lala. Pero I think there's a shift now na yung mga public officials, they would actually go on the site and then they would assure na they're doing something. Some of them baka performative, but at the very least, they're showing up. And very sensitive talaga sila sa criticism. So, having that kind of culture na alam nilang nakatingin yung tao, I think malaki na po siyang achievement. But I think the challenge is to keep it going, lalo na't medyo nagdi-dwindle down na rin yung siguro yung mga rallies, 'di ba dati, dami-dami. Ngayon, medyo lumiliit. But hopefully po, no, magpatuloy yung ganong kultura na natatakot yung mga public officials or alam nilang accountable sila sa tao dahil na ramdaman nila yung galit, lalo na nung at the height of it.
Biruin mo, pwede palang hindi magbahasa na Botas at Malabon at Marikina.
Right.
Diba? Habagat pa to. So, biglang nagganahan ng mga pumping station, biglang naging successful ang dredging,
Diba
etc. Okay, pero pupunta tayo ultimately, culpable pa rin ba? Nagtanong ka saan? May sisi ba rin dito ang Pangulo?
Paano ba sasagutin yung tanong yan? Syempre po, no, the president, siya naman po yung, or executive naman po yung nagpa-propose ng budget. To me, it's hard to believe na hindi na rin naman po nila alam yung nangyayari kapag nagkakaroon ng mga budget hearings sa Congress. So, at the very least, bakit tumagal ng 3 years po, no kung hindi alam or I don't know. And apart from that, and I think yung isa rin po kasing point of contention ng iba is sa unprogrammed appropriations. Yung argument po kasi ng mga ibang tao, dun sa programmed appropriations, syempre may control yung mga congressista doon, yun yung automatic. Pero pag sa unprogrammed appropriations po kasi, budget experts say, mas may discretion yung executive sa pagpapalabas po nun. when I was investigating anong program appropriations, ang hirap po actually hagilapin ng mga proyekto na funded by doon. Luckily, someone who trusts us gave us a list of a lot of those projects, and karamihan din flood control. And so, if yung argument is the discretion is with the executive kung paano nilalabas yung UA, in a way, mapapatanong ka din, ano kaya yung involvement? Meron kayang involvement yung Malacanang po dito, no? And I think yung third answer sa question na yan is, there are still allegations against the president na allegedly, no, nagpadala din po ng pera doon sa kanya po, doon po sa, I think si Yusek Jojo Cadiz po, no, nabanggit po yung pangalan. And interestingly, kasi po, di ba, doon binasa ko po yung affidavit sa ombudsman against former Speaker Martin Romualdez. Di ba, nag-base po sila doon sa sinabi ni former Representative Zaldico na 56 billion po yung dineliver. When you go back to the expose of Zaldico on Facebook, sinabi niya na may 1 billion doon napunta daw sa president. So parang I think kailangan na ding siguro may explanation din kung totoo ba yun or anything, something like that. So yun po, parang a lot of questions have been left unanswered. So, kaya may tanongan na culpable ba siya? Diba? It happened under his administration. We're not saying it started within the administration, but at the very least, people are saying doon siya lumala.
At the buck stops where, ultimately? Parang
Exactly.
ganun. Makakatulong ba pag pinauwi talaga si Zaldico? May ibibigay ba siyang bago o lahat ba na nasabi niya na? O at least everything we need to know to investigate?
I think malaking bagay po yun if mapauwi siya. Kasi di ba, lalo na po nung congressional hearings, dinidismiss po yung mga statements niya kasi bakit niya, pwede mo bang inauthorize yung Facebook Live, di ba? Para maging admissible daw sa korte yung sinasabi niya, he has to go back. Or at the very least, parang signan niya daw. And syempre finally, maharap niya yung mga kaso laban sa kanya na di ba may isa nga po na archive na dahil hindi nga po siya makauwi. So yun po yung sinasabi natin na parang yun yung times na medyo bigay ng less hope kasi na-archive na kasi wala siya, hindi mahabol. So I think on that end, pag bumalik po siya, syempre maharap niya yung kaso. And he can divulge more information kasi, again, going back to the BBM parametric formula, sabi nga po, may intervention pa rin yung House leadership. And at the time, he was the appropriations chairperson. And yun nga, siya nga daw po ang naglalagay ng mga insertions ng iba. And di ba sa expose niya po, sinasabi niya na eventually, hindi naman daw po lahat yun napupunta sa kanya. So that's a challenge to him na sana pangalanan niya na lahat. Kanino ba lahat napunta? Yung mga ganong bagay.
Alright. So, kung gusto po ninyo mabasa itong article ni Gwen Latoza, pati na rin yung mga previous articles niya, at hindi lang po ang flood control ang meron siya ng mga artikulo po, mga kapatid. May pagsiyasatin po siya sa ibang mga issues tulad ng kumbaga, mga disinformation, mga kung ano-ano pang mga operasyon na may malawakang mga detalye. Pumunta lang po sa website ng Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. Maraming salamat at mabuhay ka, Gwen Latoza.
Thank you rin po for bumping the website.
Alright. BBM, dati bahang-bahang Marikin or bahang-bahang Malabon. But ngayon, tuyo na siya. Or more developments ahead here on Political Beat. Please don't go away. Just a quick nod to capitalism. And you're still watching Political Beat. President Marcos says he'll be endorsing a candidate in 2028, someone he believes can continue his administration's programs and many other qualities. But with the president's own political capital likely to factor into the next elections, will his endorsement be a boost or could it become rather a liability? But a recent Okta survey says that a certain combination has the ability to trump the one leading the current surveys. And for that, we'll be talking to our Octa Research Fellow, our guest, Dr. Guido David. Doc Guido, great to see you again, sir.
Yes, great to be here, Lord, of course.
Maraming salamat sa oras. Appreciate it. Okay, sir, bakit of all tandems naisip ninyo na panapat kay Sara Duterte at kay Amy Marcos kung imaginary kumbaga or hypothetical na mga team ups, ano? Sara Duterte and Amy, Raffy Tulfo and Leni Robredo. Bago tayo magsimula, bakit si Amy ang napili ninyo na pang-imaginary na katandem?
It's actually a good question. Hindi ako yung pumili niyan. Pero I think it's a reasonable tandem, you could say. Pero nung sinusuri ko yung mga comments, maraming nagsasabi, hindi naman siya yung magiging VP ni VP Sara pag tumakbo si VP Sara for president. Ang mga names na I'm hearing before, si Senator Marcoleta, I've been hearing his name before, but now not anymore because medyo
Sabihin natin hindi siya malaya.
Na-traffic siya like me kanina. But two names I'm hearing, well, yung isa medyo problematic din, si Senator Bongo. Problematic in the sense na merong what do you call that? Yung sword na dangling over his head, which is the ICC. We don't know if that will prosper or continue or move forward. Yung isa naman is si Senator Robin Padilla.
Yan.
Always in
Yun,
the news
mataas
right
yun.
now. Mataas siya, actually. And he's, in our own survey, he was leading sa senatorial preference. So that means he still has significant political capital. Despite him being, let's be honest, may pagka-polarizing si Senator Robin. It's either you love him or you hate him. Parang ganun. I think bihira lang yung mga taong in the middle with Senator Robin. That's my observation based on the data. But anyway, regardless, so assuming si Senator Amy yung katandem ni VP Sara, we tested some matchups. Pero this one is medyo obvious ito right now because when we do the presidential survey na unaided, yun yung top two names na lumalabas si Mayor Leni and si Senator Raffy Tulfo. So, logical na since silang top two na contenders ni VP Sara, pag pinagsama natin, we want to see kung ano yung magiging chain reaction or chemical combination. And lumalabas nga, at least a survey na, actually, it's still within margin of error for me, but 45-42, slightly ahead yung tandem ni Leni Raffy.
Pero ayon sa inyo, parang statistical tie pa rin siya.
Statistical tie because it's just within 3 points. Pero 45-42. And I'm sure may mga bibira dito sa survey, mga hindi maniniwala because there are those who feel na sure win na si VP Sara. But, I mean, sa akin naman, maybe she's a formidable contender. Pero it's hard to predict 2 years before. Mahirap magsabi ng sure win. In fact, yung mga nagsasabi ng sure win, parang madalas, it comes back to them. Parang gano'n. I'm not saying it will, but...
Yun ang Senate President ngayon. Si Sherwin Gatchalian.
Hey!
Boom.
Pwede
Sorry.
Pwede sa 4 alas.
Hello sa mga taga 4 alas. Oo, bisita ninyo nung Sabado.
Sherwin, yes.
Maraming kwento. Ano kaya ang mga kwentuhan ninyo away from the camera kung meron mga ganun? Tatanungin ko yung mama. So ginawa ang survey July 4 to 11. Pero hindi pa yata nagsisimula impeachment nito.
July 6 yung start ng impeachment. So nahaging siya.
Okay.
Part of the survey tinawa ng impeachment. So yeah, pero interesting dito is, of course, obvious naman na pagtitingnan natin, and kung may mga nagdi-disagree sa survey, makikita naman nila na yung tandem ni VP Sara, Senator Amy sa Mindanao, it's very strong pa rin. 90% for their tandem. And yung Leni Raffy tandem gets only 5% sa Mindanao. Pero malakas sila sa Metro Manila, si Leni Raffy, and sa
Mas
balance
malakas sa
Luzon.
Metro Manila.
Yes.
Okay, pareho, kung i-compare sa survey nyo nung March, pareho silang nag-increase, mga numero nila. ang Robredo Tulfo nag-increase from 44% to 52%. Samantalang ang Duterte Marcos
45.
ay from 44
To 45.
to 45.
Yes.
40% naman ang Duterte Marcos tandem dati, naging 42. Alam natin na kakarampot lang naman yun, pero maliit ang increase. Pero halimbawa, nagkaroon din ng ganitong match-up ba noong March, Octa, paglilinaw lang?
Yes.
Mhm. Okay. Ang sinabi ninyo dito ay Octa said that the results show that a tandem landscape remains highly competitive and unsettled. So, a tandem landscape, ibig sabihin may laban kung may kapartner ang tatapat kila Sara Duterte?
Yes. In a way, ang nakikita natin dito sa tandem is parang may value add si Senator Raffy kay Mayor Lenny pag titandem. But in practice naman, hindi naman tandem yung botohan eh. We're not like in the US na yung president mo is the vice
Kaya
president.
tayo may gantong problema ngayon. Pero, okay, meron din bang pinag-aralan nyo yung ang permutation ay kung baligtarin na halimbawa, si Mayor Lenny yung, may ganun ba? May vice ang isa at presidente yung isa? O mag-iiba ba yung figure, yung ano?
Sa ngayon mag-iiba siya. I don't think I'm at liberty to speak about that. I think parang may nakita akong ganon. I'm not sure. I can't remember the numbers. Pero what I'm sure is hindi exactly the same. Hindi exactly the same numbers ang lalabas. But it's still a good tandem if baliktarin natin na si Raffy and si Lenny. And ito naman, these are very dynamic, Lord. So, by December, by next year, pwedeng mag-iba or pwedeng may mag-emerge. Doesn't mean na sila na yung the tandem, di ba? And I want to give hope din. Hindi ba sa binibigyan natin hope, but wala namang sure thing. I mean,
Tsaka walang masama.
wala masama.
Pagkumang sir, hindi naman pinagbabawal ng batas ito. Pero okay, so paglilinaw lang po, Robredo as president, Raffy Tulfo as for vice. Ito
Yes.
yung pero gaano kaya kalaki yung pagbabago kapag... Pero okay, ayon sa survey ng Octa, the vice president's numbers took a hit nung nagsimula na itong impeachment.
Yes.
Ito, gusto ko malaman, without revealing, alam nga, hindi mo na nire-reveal, I'm sure. Pero yung susunod ba natin makikita, masashock tayo. Blink kung bumaba at huwag ka mag-blink kung na-maintain.
Ano yung
Sorry.
Ano yung tinatanong mo?
Meron bang may findings kayo o may ginagawa ba kayo na maaring tuloy-tuloy o may pagbaba ang mga numero ng VP?
Pero wala pa yun eh.
Sa
So
impeachment.
I can't blink kasi wala. Siguro for the next survey, then makakapag-blink na ako ng maayos. Pero ito, may, just to share another survey result na kinonduct nung not about the matchups, kasi since you're asking about the vice president. So lumabas dito sa Octa survey na 55% of adult Filipinos prefer to wait for the presentation of evidence before deciding
impeachment.
on the impeachment.
Yeah,
So about the impeachment, so may nagtatanong, are you gusto niya bang i-acquit si VP or gusto niya bang i-convict? Ang 21% nagsabi acquit the vice president. 17% nagsabi convict. Medyo magkalapit. Although lamang na konti yung acquit, 21 to 17, but almost about a margin of error. Pero 55% nagsabi, it's too early to tell. I need to see the evidence presented during the trial. So,
Mga attorney pa yata yan. I'm sure hindi mga yan.
hindi general public.
Hindi senator judges yung iba dyan.
Ay, hindi senator judges.
Sila sa 20, ilang percent yun yung acquit?
21 sa acquit
May mga kilala ko na bahagi ng 21% na yan.
at 17 sa convict. So, baka, we'll see sa senator judges. Pero, sana yung senator judges natin ganito. Majority are still waiting to hear the evidence. Ito yung general public
Yeah.
natin. From A, B, C, D, E, ganyan, from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao. They want to hear the evidence. So hindi sila, 21% lang nagsabi na, dapat i-acquit na agad. And ito yung, our belief is ito yung mga die-hard supporters. Kasi di ba, I mean,
Yep.
you're saying na acquit na agad without hearing the evidence, di ba? What would that mean? And then yung 17%, I mean, let's say ito naman yung mga die-hard against, parang ganon.
My VP right or wrong, ika nga nila.
Yun.
Pero, ano tawag dito? Nakalimutan ko tuloy tatanong. Andito na kanina eh. Marcos-Duterte tandem na naman or Duterte-Marcos tandem. Ano yung usually attributed to Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity?
If
Doing the same thing over and over again
and over again.
expecting a different result.
Yes. Well,
Makaiba naman.
makaiba naman. And,
Kasi
yes.
Vice naman yung Marcos.
Vice naman. So parang bagong Uniteam 2.0 or something like that.
This time, baka mag-work?
Actually, yung sinasabi nga nilang dapat Uniteam 2.0 is parang kunyari, Lenny Marcos type of tandem, like
Tumawid.
diba? Yun yung sinasabi ni na Sec. Ronald Llamas na dapat maging parang tandem because of course si Ronald Llamas his position is he doesn't want the vice president to win. Let's be.
He is a believer in miracles. Pero on that note, a miracle, the thing is mathematics. Maraming salamat sa oras mo. Dr. Guido David ng Octa Research. Thank you, Doc Guido. Great to see you again, sir.
Thank you.
Nice hair. In December 2025, DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon, only less than 4 months on the job, and appointed in the aftermath of the flood control scandal, announced the launch of the EDSA Rehabilitation Project. He boasted that through the use of advanced Japanese road technology, repair time will be shortened and would slash project costs from 17 billion to 6 billion. The specified surface was stone mastic asphalt, a material priced precisely for resistance to heavy traffic and is 100% impervious to water. Phase 1, worth more than 1.18 billion, was proudly finished ahead of schedule by April. 4 months later, after days of non-stop rains, many parts of EDSA now resemble the lunar surface. Dizon expected the damage and was visibly furious. He ordered the contractor to repair it at the contractor's own expense, according to Dizon. And the culprit is the bus barriers. The barrier that prevented proper drainage and accumulated water damaged the asphalt. But it evokes an even more embarrassing question. Who the hell rehabilitates the country's most important highway without anticipating demonic rain? That this is not Riyadh. We have a monsoon season, and drainage is not optional. And this is where Dizon risks becoming a victim of his own political style. He has cultivated the image of the perpetually appalled cabinet secretary, arriving at the scene, discovering something outrageous, demanding explanations, which makes for excellent television, but eventually the public is entitled to an explanation as to why the Secretary of Public Works always looks like the last guy in government to know. Because it rained is not a satisfactory engineering explanation. This is a danger of what some may term as performative governance. Inspection gradually substitutes for supervision, presence and photo op for competence. We become accustomed to officials dramatically discovering problems that their departments were specifically created to prevent. Cameras roll. Fingers are pointed, brows furrowed, contractors are summoned, expletives are uttered, orders are barked, and everyone looks terribly busy after the asphalt has already disintegrated. The more useful performance should have happened before the ribbon cutting, the laboratory tests of the asphalt mix, making sure it had zero polvoron content, and that the contractor, which is now more than 300 government projects, really knows what it's doing. Because the true measure of a public works secretary is not how angry he looks posing with a pothole. It's how few potholes he has to stand beside with in the first place. And that looking angry, frustrated, and exasperated can actually be infuriating, frustrating, and exasperating. And that has been the word of the Lord for tonight, the Political Beat, this Friday, the 14th of August. I'm Lourdes de Vera. Please enjoy the rest of your damp week.